Welcome back to Mishpacha's Take 2, where we try to sit with some of those people who are changing the world, each one in their way, and share their stories, some more than others. If you're going to call your organization Bonei Olam, builders of the world, it could be very presumptuous, or it could be right on. It's a schus with somebody who is building the world. Rabbi Shlomo Bochner, thank you for coming, and not an easy man to pin down, a busy man, and I appreciate you making the time.
Thank you.
You just came back from
Gateshead, England.
Gateshead, England. Why were you in Gateshead?
We just opened up a new branch. It was a beautiful summer.
What does that mean? There's still places that
don't
have
in the UK branches? We have 4 branches. We have one in Stamford Hill, one at Golders Green, one in Manchester. And yesterday we celebrated the first get-together, the first dinner they made for Gateshead. Gateshead has its own group of Askonim, own council group.
I think everybody watching this is familiar, more or less, with what Bonei Olam does. But what does that mean? A new branch of what? A new branch of people giving referrals, advocacy, advice. Yeah, why can't somebody in Gateshead just call the Manchester branch? Just explain that.
Because first of all, it's not the same medical people available from Manchester to Gateshead. Not everybody's going to travel.
What does that mean to open a new branch?
The branch means that everybody gets, the Askonim in the neighborhood get to know all the medicine and medical help they can get in their vicinity, in their neighborhood. Well, it's not shaykh to send everybody a few hours here or a few hours there. So first of all, they have to know, they have to understand fertility and everything that comes along with it, well enough, being trained. And then they have to get to learn all the medicine that's available for them. If it comes to a point which is very complicated, and they have to move on. So they're all hooked up to the main office in London branch, which they control medicine all over, and they work hand in hand. So when they need something more than that, they have people advising them and explaining them, and we can get the help for them if locally it's not available.
What does Bonei Olam do? Okay.
Bonei Olam started off trying to help finance people that have to pay for fertility treatment. This was the original goal. This all started because,
unfortunately,
funding, because it all started because we saw when we went through this that money really made a major role for many people. Many people failed because they couldn't afford. So this was the idea to help finance. But it's very hard to finance treatments when the people who are financing don't understand.
Sorry, you just said something, you just were mavliya something there. People didn't have children because of money?
Absolutely. I myself had to stop many times my treatments because I couldn't pay and I couldn't get the blood work results even. That's how it used to work those days.
And how is that possible? How is it possible in the Frum community people didn't have children because of money? There's money for everything. How is that possible?
How it's possible, I don't know what the answer is.
People were ashamed to ask for help?
Maybe. There was nobody really that wanted to put them. This is one of the hardest mitzvahs to get involved in because, first of all, it's a huge achrayus to raise so much money, right? Second of all, is you have to understand medicine well enough to understand how you're spending your money, right? And the third thing is, like you said before, people were embarrassed to talk about this in public, even embarrassed to go ask one-on-one, can you help me? So I remember my early years that when I had to go around asking Rabbanim Shayla, I couldn't find anybody. And if I found somebody, he told me, call me back, he never called me back. So when Bonei Olam started, I made myself a commitment that my cell phone will be open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I even sleep under my pillow with the phone. Because there were many times that I so desperately needed someone to talk to, there was nobody available. And also in those days, very few people understood the terminology, what actually is being done over there. So from the man that says, whatever we went through, this is how the organization started. By the time that we were ready to start, otherwise, by the time when they told us we cannot do anymore, so I basically took all my connections for all the world.
Now you're jumping over a story which is really a book, but with things that we've discussed that it was a tremendous difficulty for you as we've discussed, and your wife had the spirit and the strength somehow.
I remember the famous words of my wife,
and the courage to say.
She said that time, we were driving home in the car after that last visit, and she told me, Shlomo, you see, the Rabbi Shlomo told us no, but we're going to answer with a resounding yes. I looked at her like, what are you talking about? She says, we're going to be there for other people. We're going to build Klal Yisrael. And my wife is not really that type of person to come out there, but so I was quiet. I just told her a few minutes later, I said, Honey, this is the plan, because I'm not looking to spend my life to going around all over. This is the plan, and if you don't want to join me, we'll do it ourselves. She got together 4 or 5 friends, and they launched Bonei Olam. I joined them a little bit later by the way she persuaded me, and we got into it.
And it was about funding people who needed.
That's how it's really started.
Now, what changed? Why would someone come to you if people are ashamed, and they're ashamed of you as well?
So this comes along with a little bit of the Messias Nefesh on our part was that we stood out as the first people and spoke about it in public. This, I think, was the first chesed that we gave for Klal Yisrael. I spoke for many people. We started putting together media awareness.
Who invited you to speak? Where did you set up these speeches?
So, it's interesting. From the 4 people that joined my wife to form this organization, everyone had a history on their own. Everybody had their own connections. So the first thing they did was, they said, let's make a public gathering and we'll see how people will respond. So they took a house in Borough Park and said, they did very little advertisement. It's going to be the first inaugural party for an organization called Bonei Olam, which is going to deal with infertility in Klal Yisrael. They had no clue where this is going to go.
You knew that you were shooting high with the name Bonei Olam? That's a big name.
Honestly, I wasn't the one that came up with the name, as the ladies. Their credit, even the logo is their credit. I came in already more or less when a lot of these things were settled. Yes, they were a very devoted group. And the truth is, if you look back in history, Noshim Tzidkoni is really the builders. They will take on things that men would think 10 times before. Should I? Shouldn't I? They just moved ahead, and I gave them a lot of credit for that. So when they made that first party, my wife called me up 9, 10 o'clock at night. She says, Shlomo, you're not going to believe there's a line around the block. People came, mamish like on their own. When she came home, it was around 2:30 in the morning, she told me, Shlomo, the Rebbeinu Shalom agrees that there has to be an organization. Their response was so, and they hardly advertised, but it went around so fast. And from there, actually, it took off. So one of the main chasodim that Rebbeinu Shalom did with Bonei Olam was not so much the money, as I thought this is going to be the most important. I was always surrounded with people that had a very, very high base of knowledge in this field. This actually pushed us up, really up. We're the first ones that actually introduced genetics in such a big form.
Right, so when we met for the magazine 2 years ago, you were telling me that you feel that people don't really understand what Bonei Olam does.
Right.
They have the superficial understanding that they help with fertility, they don't really get it. If I would ask you in 120 seconds, in deference to my own ADHD, or less, tell me, what does Bonei Olam do? What is the thing that people don't know about it?
Let's put it, Bonei Olam is involved even before the boy and the girl get married, if there's an issue, until the baby is born. Now that can involve so many steps, whether it's a Chas v'Shalom genetic issue and a boy and a girl know before they're getting married there's an issue, so somebody has to plan if they can get married.
But what does that mean? It doesn't, what's his name do that?
Doishum checks for only recessive. That means both have to be positive. But there's something which is a dominant. One can bring over the same. They're not going to check for that. They only tell you if you're a match.
In theory, if you identify some kind of gene that's prevalent in part of the Frum community or the Jewish community, could you weed that out of the community?
This is one of the biggest achievements that Bonei takes credit for.
Tell me about it.
There's something called IVF PGD, which means actually when you do an IVF, you have the embryos on the table. You can biopsy every embryo, go under the microscope. It will tell you if this embryo carries the mutation or doesn't carry the mutation. And when you only implant something which is clean of that mutation, you basically cut off a lineage of pain that has been there generations in their DNA. From now on, bis Mashiach comes, this child will always have children. They'll have no trace anymore of this disease. Now, this is so relevant, and people who understand genetics, whether it's a fragile X, whether it's there's so many. I don't want to start naming
different kind of physical illnesses or emotional illnesses.
No, they hit both. They hit both. It can be metabolic, it can be molecular. It goes.
Now, you're Bob of the clothing guy from Borough Park. How do you even talk this way? How do you know so much?
I know a lot because unfortunately
I say that with respect. Being a Bob and being in the clothing business is very worthy. I'm not being demeaning.
No, I take it with an honor.
How are you so knowledgeable? How did you?
So from being in this field and being smacked around a lot, this is how I learned. Somehow I wanted to understand when I was going through it, what are they doing? Let me have an input. What's the results? So I basically learned as I went along. But again, I have to say, the Rebbeinu was very good. I always had very, very super knowledgeable people around me, which doctors, it's not a chiddush to us that we get a few times a call a day. Doctors call and goes, Rabbi, whatever he's talking to, where are we going from here? What would you like us to do here? We're way above many of the centers. We do chidushim. We identify mutations. It's a very high level, total different level of medicine that a lot of people give us credit for.
Walk me through the process. A couple gets married and they live in Gateshead. Rahman al-Hassan, nobody should ever have to deal with this.
Right.
It takes a couple of years, 3, 4,
doesn't
5.
These days doesn't take a couple of years.
People know right away if they're going to be facing?
Some do, and Nobody waits today 3-4 years because there's always blood work to do, which is not major invasive, to tell us if we're having...
You recommend that people should wait 6 months after the chasna, they should already be calling and seeing?
No, a lot of it really depends if there's any medical history or there's any symptoms. That's usually
medical history of people who didn't have children right away?
Yeah, if the boy carries a certain issue, the girl, maybe they didn't pay attention to it. Or issues come up when they're married already, which to some people might not be that important, but when you talk to people, you get the facts. And if you train, you will pick up certain points. I would like to test this, I would like to check for this. And
now, let me jump out of the medical for a second, and I'm just curious because you're a wise man. What do you see as the role of parents in this? Is that a young couple's own thing? Should the parents be involved? Do you appreciate when the parents call you?
So I'm going a little bit out of the box. The in-box thought is parents should never get involved. And couples don't want parents to know. And this might be the rule for most of them. But as years move on, I've seen, and actually I feel it's a very positive trend, there are some parents that have a very good relationship with their children. Some parents don't have that relationship. Those parents that are very close to their children, it's a blessing. It's really a blessing because they give them a lot of support and a lot of chizuk, especially if the parents are intelligent and they don't pry for issues that the couple is not comfortable to share with them, but just be there as a support on the side. It's a major, major benefit. To many people, I can't say this is...
Do parents ever have a right to ask their children, say, you're married a year and a half, did you call Bonei Olam? Is that
I don't
ever
have
a
a
parent's
right
place?
or not, but if they don't even ask, the children feel the pressure. Sometimes you don't have to ask the question. You get that sense that I'm being pushed to answer. So I don't think this is a smart way to do it because then the couple will rebuff. They're not going to like that. It's either you ask me or you don't ask me. So I sometimes will tell a mother, when she says, I'm mother with, says, invite the couple for Shabbos. After Lechzen, the man is in shul, your husband's in shul, sit down with your daughter on the couch and ask a shayfel, is there anything that I can do for you? Don't ask. First offer. The offer opens up the door. It's not the ball is in her court. Do I take that offer or don't take that offer? Many times, if this daughter is going through a very hard time and she trusts her mother, she will say, Mommy, I need help in this, I need help in that. But sometimes I can see the daughter tell the mother, okay, Mommy, from here on, let me do this on my own, because it becomes invasive in the privacy between a couple. It really depends, but more and more parents are getting involved today than ever before.
Because?
I don't know why. Is it because COVID brought to that, or maybe people need more help and some parents aren't intelligent enough?
It might be that you took away a certain stigma and it's easier to talk about.
Could also be.
There's no great
but
shame.
I don't recommend it unless it happens really on its own. It really depends on the relationship between
in the old days, they went to Bonei Olam, let's say, and they got some kind of course and a check. You were covering them. Now you're doing something different. What are you doing different?
No, today it also really depends really what the case is. If it's a run-of-the-mill case, it's one. If it's involved research because we don't have the answer, or we're dealing with an issue that means a lot more than a basic ovulation induction, so to speak, then it becomes more of a complicated question, and especially when it touches genetics. I want to move over to a point. We do a lot in high-risk pregnancy. Unfortunately, today, doctors will tell a woman they don't like what they see on the ultrasound. Now, they might be right, they might be wrong. I'm not getting into that part. People go into a tizzy when they hear that, because rightfully so. Is my baby going to be healthy? It's not going to be healthy. One of the major roles Bonei Olam has been doing for over 20 years was we always had people, us, that understood how this thing really works, the anatomy of this whole situation. We're always connected to very, very big centers, which we can ask a question which normal centers may not give us the answer. Many, many babies were headed for the abortion, and Baruch Hashem, they were born really healthy children. This happens very, very often.
Because why? What did you do?
Because, no, it's basically taking the same case and shifting over to a different center where an ultrasound is done way better than the centers they were, and you come back with better results. I just had a couple.
That means the doctors here were lying. They were just speculating.
They were not lying. It depends how well you're trained in this field, how to do an ultrasound. There's different ways to do it, and there's a lot more experience involved. I once had a couple come to me, first baby. He looked me up at a chasana. It was a freezing night, and he came over to me and said, Mr. Bochner, yeah? He says, I have a question to ask you. I went to the doctor, and the doctor does not see kidneys in the baby. There's no kidneys. I said, tomorrow morning, I'm going to call him tomorrow morning. I got him into a different center, and I remember how the doctor called me from that center, and he sent me a clip. He says, you see these two tiny black dots? Those are the two kidneys. Your baby has kidneys. Now, this doctor who he went with was a run-of-the-mill place, and did not pick up.
When did that become Bonei Olam's thing? When did that become part of your purview?
Actually, quite right after the beginning.
Why?
Because it became necessary. Because once you helped the couple and they became pregnant and issues came up, who did they call? They called me back again. So it was training as we went on, even though I had no knowledge in that field. But again, I had people with me that knew the stuff. I'm very particular that the people work around me or the centers that I use are people on the right caliber. I don't send people to doctors out of a reference book, only if we met them before, we know how he works.
Why would they meet you? Meaning today, I know already why they would meet you, but in 1997,
so I want to tell
why would they sit with you?
This is another siyata d'shmaya. In my entire involvement in Klal Yisrael, sending people to doctors, I must say, I never had yet a doctor that refused me. Never. Doctors that I never met and will never meet again. Somehow, when whoever I called and I asked them, and I do ask sometimes questions, which is a little bit favors out of the box a little bit. Klal Yisrael does need a different level of help than
sensitivity.
Right, and halucha plays a major role over here. I've never had yet somebody tell me no. Hashem should help further.
Now, what was it like fundraising for this cause early on? Again, today people understand already, and there's quite a few babies walking around the world, Baruch Hashem, as a result. But early on...
So money works like this. Rav Steinman always used to tell me, Rabbi Shlomo.
You loved Rav Steinman.
I miss him every day. Mama, this man was, besides, but he was, as a Mama Shabal Rucha Kodesh, but he was a super, super clever man. He was a brilliant man, a very smart person, and whatever question I had. So he once told me, Shlomo, die Geist tut mir so viel Geld, wie viel Klal Yisrael darf haben von dir? Hashem gives money balanced. That's what he told me. So do a mishkal. Wo Hashem geht nicht mehr wie man darf, geht nicht weniger wie man darf. Wie viel die Geist tun, ist der Hum wenig zu geben für die Bevölkerung. This is what he told me. So my life ran that way.
Maybe it's a cynical thing to say. You should be Michael me yet again. The ones I know on your staff, I'm quite close with Baruch Kohlberger, who's a superstar. He's just anybody associated with you in any area. If it's marketing, if it's development, if it is
and it's all siyata d'shmaya.
You raise a lot of money, and people are cynical about it sometimes. Like so much of the communal part has to go to Bonei Olam. It's one of those organizations that's they're always doing events, and you're always doing things. There's always programs. We're talking about tens of thousands of people who are part of your programs, and there's other needs in the world. Come on. Right? There's all kinds of things that need to happen in Klal Yisrael. There's meisters that need to go on, and there's people. It
just so happens that
you're familiar with the question, though, right? You know that people say that.
No, I did not hear that. But could be. Not everything gets.
Always Bonei Olam and always such big money.
But you have to understand, the Bonei Olam umbrella covers a massive amount of services, which could be broken up in many different organizations. I opened up recently, 6 or 7 months ago, another organization called KesherNetworks.org. This is a website where every boy or girl that has a medical genetic issue, they can post in anonymity. I'm a boy living in Lakewood, New Jersey. I'm 25 years old. I have Noonan syndrome. So this site is being viewed by thousands of people. Now, these boys and girls never trusted to go to a shadchan because before you know, the news gets around and they wouldn't even have a chance to go on a date. So we came up with this chiddush. You post an anonymous, right? And we have like 6 shadchanim working behind the scenes, and we get requests for matchings. A girl gets on set, she sees that thing, maybe this might work for me. So she calls
because her genetics allow her.
Yes, whatever she knows medically, this might be a match for her. So we ask, once there's a request, we get the medical stuff from both of them, we review it, and the shadchan starts putting these two together. So it's only 6-7 months in practice. We had, I think, 40, coming close to 50 dates from people that never went on a date yet. Now, Shidduchim are going to happen from this. So this is another program. We do a lot for singles, encouraging them to cry preservation. Even when I have extra funding, we give them money. It's a total organization on its own. You go into genetics. We just had a major breakthrough in one genetic mutation, which was nobody ever went that way to find 100% solution for it. It's not the setting to speak in details about it. It cost me a ton of money. So this is you go to the genetics. Then you move on.
Do you have a board, or you make these decisions on your
there's
own?
a board, for sure.
You have a board who makes every decision of every...
I don't spend any big money before I don't bring it up to... Well, so I have two boards, actually. I have a medical board within us, which is my most important board, because they're responsible people, and they will evaluate. They know the medicine even better than I do. Then there's a board on top of them. Listen, this is what money we want to do this, we want to spend for this.
Do you still work outside of Bonei Olam? You still have a day job? Or?
It's getting less and less. The last few years, I only work like 6-7 weeks a year. That's a really... but I made a cheshbon. Man is not here forever. And if Hashem gave me... If I wouldn't be matzlich, honestly, I wouldn't be doing it. But I do see that Hashem, in medicine, Hashem, every day... we just did yesterday... We have our own lab. It's called AAS, Advanced Andrology Solutions. What I'm telling you now is a total organization on its own. But it's all part of Bonei Olam. This is a setting where male...
And Bonei Olam is completely donor-funded?
Completely donor-funded.
There's no government, there's no
nothing,
grants, there's
nothing.
How come?
No kickbacks, no nothing. Well, first, the government does not appreciate having children. What shaykhs do they have to that? And the grants, most of the grants are in non-from hands. This is a fact. And they don't value having children. Whenever I did approach them once or twice, my answer always came back, there's so many children here, we need more children for fostering and for adoption. Who needs more children?
In the from community, did you find people who didn't understand the need to give money to Bonei Olam, or never?
Yes, I did, unfortunately. And to many of them that didn't understand, and I actually had with them a little like a dusiach, like a conversation. Some of them came back to me later, I was so silly that I even brought up the subject. My grandchild is going through something, my son is going through...
They had to come to
something, but people just got to learn that this is a lot more available. So I just want to tell you, this week the lab is open. I'm not open every week in the year because I can't afford it yet. 7 times a year so far. We had this week a boy that's engaged, and he got ill, cancer. So the chassan time was pushed off. Finally he's in remission. Now the girl really wanted to marry only when she knows that he can have children. Now I can't bore you with the details, it's not in a public setting, but we basically got that shidduch back on track. I was so happy I could be a shliach for that. This was not available before. And nobody would even get involved to that level. But to me this was a simcha that I put back. Zivik, they become again, they're going to get married. Why? Because we had our lab available. We did this week a procedure on a 14-year-old boy, which we found out he's carrying a certain genetic mutation. If we wouldn't do something for him now, at 14 years old, he would never have children. So this is really, you can break this up and be an organization on its own. So by now, basically...
Where is the lab?
Now it's in the city.
Wow. So what do you do all day? You're fundraising for all these?
This is a very high. I can only tell you at night what I did during the daytime. I really don't know in the morning. I'm sitting with you now in the morning. I have no clue what's awaiting me for the day.
I want to go back to something we've talked about this in public settings too, and you said interesting things on it. People know others in this situation, going through this in society, waiting for children, hoping for children. And I asked you then, do you think it's appropriate to go over to somebody and say, I'm davening for you, I'm thinking of you? You said yes.
Yes.
Others were surprised at that. Or it happens a lot of times in shul, people say, let's buy him kalanarim on some chastayr, and other people say, no, I'll be embarrassed.
That's different.
He doesn't want to be called.
That's different. That's a public. You're putting the person in a public in a shoe, which to go privately tell the person, I do.
Thinking of you?
You should know, even if you feel that at the second
Others
he was like saying...
disagreed with you on this. Others said, no, don't say anything. You say, yeah, go over.
Not only I say, I think...
It's not only people with no children, people with any society.
No, I think it's wrong, because you know what? For the first moment, it might be like a pushback. 5 minutes later, I promise you this person is going to feel so great that somebody has me in mind. I have a minute whenever I meet somebody, and I'm involved with people with sick children, shidduchim, whatever, wherever I meet, I go over, give them on the face, Shefel, I have you in mind. And I really do. But it gives so much... It definitely brings a joy. Maybe it's not made for everybody. Could be. But I do it all the time. You know why? Because when I was swallowing my own pain, hardly ever anybody came over and told me that. But if there was a person that told me that, Shlomo, we're friends, it meant the world to me. Even though I know his thinking is not going to bring me my salute. But for a moment, I was not anymore that lonely for that second. Somebody else is mishtatif in my tzah. For whatever was worth it. No, I think we should do it, and I think it should be encouraged. But it depends who does it. Imagine a Rosh Yeshiva in Koil goes over to a young man that doesn't have children for a few years. It goes something just by going out to Shiva lunch says, maybe we could do. Do you know what a world this means to this person?
Say it.
Absolutely.
You talked about your own pain. You wanted something from the Rebbe Shalom very badly. You didn't get it. And you're able to not be bitter. You're able to go on and build. How?
And I must say that I did not just want it. I put so much koiches. The deals that I made with the Rebbe Shalom, I'm even embarrassed even to repeat it, but I was so desperate to have even one child. The things that I took upon myself, the answer was no.
A lot of people deal with pain and they collapse. A few of them are able to be resilient enough to build. How? What's the answer?
So the answer, really, a lot of it is the credit for my wife. I must go back to base one. She is a stronger person than I am, and she somehow had this whole parasha through in a more logic way. And bottom line, her minute betochen was stronger than mine. Let's put it that way. She was able to see then in this pain that the Rebbe Shalom is behind. It's not happening on its own. There's a reason for it. I had a hard time recognizing it. I had a lot of anger in me. It was the anger more that didn't let me. It took me time. How did I really make peace with this? When I was matzlich to do for other people, even the same issues that we struggled, we were not matzlich, and I was able to be matzlich almost literally every day with the same situation. That's where somehow there's an enlightenment came into me, Shlomo. So it's not that you were the cause of it. Somehow the Rebbe Shalom has a plan he didn't want to give you. It's not because you couldn't, this person could, because you see that other people can. And you're the shlich for them, so look at it very differently. So somehow, little by little, I became like the Rebbe Shalom actually took my case, he discussed it, and there was a back and forth, and the Rebbe Shalom said, no, I don't, because I think this is better for you. And I'll give you something else in life to do. And this mission is something which, if you really think back, not because I'm so worthy of it, but the bottom line was, since day of creation of the world, there was never a plain commoner. I'm not plain common either. And I was able to basically change. And I know this is only Siyata D'Shmai. I'm smart enough to understand every move that I was Matzliach, Hashem was with me. Never for a second that I think it's my smart, because things can go both ways at the same moment, simultaneously, and yet it's not in your hands, Bechlal. It's the Rebbe Shalom. So that somehow.
This is to me is amazing. The Gvuras HaNefesh and the courage it must have taken to help somebody with your very situation to be helped. When you were not helped, that to be able to do that is getlach. It's not.
Yes, I would say, because my nature is very different than what I became. I'm transformed. I'm not the same. Even my character has changed, and I guess the guilt driving me all the time. Do this, do that. You can help this person. You can help that person, and I was involved in things that, if I look back, how in the world did you even get involved? How did you take it upon yourself? I thought to myself, look, I did whatever the Rebbe wanted me to do. I'm not the smartest person in the world. If Hashem sends them to me, I guess.
And Bonei Olam keeps evolving. You keep doing things as
always
needed.
Something new. After COVID, I was very ill. I got out of COVID. I said,
you were very ill, I'm sure.
Yeah. And when I got out of COVID, I said, eventually, I'm not going to worry anymore about money. I'm leaving that up to you. But I do want to give my koiches now for everything that is new, that will stay in Klal Yisrael, that will make a difference for people hundreds of years from now. It should be easier for a person that has these issues to be able to have a child. We did so much in cancer, how we preserve even for babies. This is not the same to go to Kedusha, but I'm going back to that one question: why Bonei Olam is at the forefront from many charities? Not Chas v'Shum, and everything is important. I don't think of myself as being the only one out there. It just so happens that so many people in Klal Yisrael need our services for their issues because we cover such a major, and it's important to have it under one umbrella. I'm being honest with you, because we do have the right people for it. If I wouldn't have the right people dealing with each one on its own, I wouldn't say it should belong to them.
Like I said, you attract I don't know if you make them great or you attract them great, but you have very special people.
I have these 6 shadchanim working. They're super shadchanim. I'm talking high caliber, not a person that has some extra few minutes when the babies go to sleep, she'll make a few phone calls. People that sit on it the whole day. We even connect it now. It's a Yisroel Tower program because we want to share Shidduchim.
Bonei Olam is across the world.
Across the world. We have in Europe, In the UK, we have 4 branches. We have in Antwerp, which services basically other parts of Europe. We have in Vienna, in Austria. And then we have in Yisroel, Tzaddik is huge. One of our biggest branches in Yisroel, Bonei Olam in Shalim. Then we have in Montreal. Then we have the entire United States, from the West Coast down to the East Coast. Believe me, it's busy. There's not a moment in the day there's not something happening, which is life-altering for this person, for that person. It's non-stop.
Shlomo, it's a big pleasure to sit with you always. You inspire me very much because you're such a focused person. You don't even let yourself even do this often enough, just to sit back and reflect. Like you said, maybe at night when you're falling asleep, you think about it. That's nice to give you the opportunity to realize what you're doing.
But all again, we have to make this the point. It's all siyata d'shmaya. The Bonei Olam is with me 24 hours a day. If not, I would not be here. I wouldn't be matzlich with
So may it continue.
I'm not even a believer anymore. I see it. I feel it. I can see sometimes. I take it on. What's the cheshbon over here? The Bonei Olam is going to be here with me. So it's not anymore me. It's not about anymore about a person. It's this chesed is the Bonei Olam's a pet project, and he wants this thing to be matzlich and to continue.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure.